Welcome to Beyond Your Why podcast, where we go beyond just talking about your why and actually help you discover and then live your why. You see, we believe that knowing your why, that driving force behind every decision you make and every action you take, is the essential first step to really knowing yourself. It allows you to move forward faster and have a bigger impact. If you're already a fan of the show, then you know that every week we talk about one of the 9 whys, and then we introduce you to somebody with that why so you can see how their why is played out in their life. This show will be more powerful for you if you've already discovered your why. If you still need to do that, head over to whyinstitute.com and discover your why today. It'll only take you about 5 minutes. Now, let's meet today's guest. This week, we're going to be talking about the why of better way, to find a better way and share it. So if this is your why, then you are the ultimate innovator. You are constantly seeking better ways to do everything. You find yourself wanting to improve virtually anything by finding a way to make it better. You also desire to share your improvements with the world. You constantly ask yourself questions like, what if we tried this differently? What if we did this another way? How can we make this better? You contribute to the world with better processes and systems while operating under the motto, I'm often pleased but never satisfied. You are excellent at associating, which means that you're adept at taking ideas or systems from one industry or discipline and applying them to another, always with the ultimate goal of improving something. And so this week, I have a great guest for you. His name is Sachin Patel. He's a father, husband, philanthropist, functional medicine practice success coach, speaker, author, breathwork facilitator, and plant medicine advocate. Sachin is convinced that the doctor of the future is the patient, and he has committed himself to helping others raise their consciousness, activate their inner doctor, and initiate their deepest healing through the use of lifestyle and breathwork. Sachin founded the Living Proof Institute, through which he pioneered a revolutionary approach to patient-centered healthcare. Sachin coaches hundreds of practitioners around the world so that they are empowered to deliver affordable and inspired care to their communities through his Perfect Practice Mentorship Program. He's an advocate of transforming the healthcare paradigm, and he has devoted his life to the betterment of healthcare for both patients and practitioners. Sachin, welcome to the podcast.
Gary, thank you. What an honor to be here. And I absolutely loved what you shared about this why, right, of finding a better way. And as you were reading that description, and as I'm taking it in, and then as you're reading my bio, I'm like, this is a very accurate assessment, right? And I can see that it's my lived experience as well. So thank you so much for the work that you do and for the insights that you provide us to better understand ourselves so we can show up as who we are instead of trying to be somebody else. And when we understand who we are, I believe that the world receives the best version of us, the version of us that it needs right now.
I love that, man. You are speaking my language. That is exactly what we talk about. But let's talk more about you now. Thank you for that. But let's go back in your life. Let's let our audience get to know you. Where were you born? And what were you like growing up? Take us into high school.
Sure, absolutely. So I was born in Toronto, Canada. My parents are originally from India, from a province called Gujarat, which is one of the more western provinces of India. And so I grew up in a very middle-class family, hardworking parents, taught us the value of everything, reminded us of the value of especially respect, particularly our elders, and respecting money, respecting books. I mean, I remember growing up that even if our foot touched a book, we would ask for forgiveness because it represents knowledge, right, and wisdom. So, we lived a very intentional life. Sometimes it felt a little rigid and strict because when you're young, you don't understand the wisdom, right? You don't understand this timeless awareness that is so important. And, I now teach these practices to my son. So the idea of stepping on a book, stepping on money, even stepping over somebody was considered, all those things were very disrespectful. So you just kind of grew up thinking the whole world lives this way. And, and not to say there's right or wrong, but this is just the way we grew up. In high school, I was very shy. You may not know it from this video, but I had a nevus on my nose. And so it was a black birthmark right in the middle of my nose. So you can only imagine what goes through your own head, right? And how it affects your confidence, how it affects, how shy you are or how approachable you are or how willing you are to approach new people. but somehow I managed. I was always had a good group of friends. I loved school, and I had always had a very positive experience. And surprisingly, I was never bullied. You would think that having not a disfiguration, but having something so front and center, literally front and center, you would be bullied, but I never was. By the grace of God or my past life, karma, whatever the case may be, I never had to experience that, which in hindsight is actually quite shocking because kids, teenagers especially, can be quite cruel. But one of the things I think back to in high school is, you kind of nailed it when you described the better way personality or operating system rather, which is you have gratitude, but you're not 100% satisfied. Right. So you're like appreciative, but there's always a better way to do something. And still to this day, it's a gift and a curse because whenever I look at something, it's hard for me to take it in for what it is. What I see are all the faults or all the ways to make it better. And one thing my dad said to me when I was very young, which haunts me to this day in some ways, is if you want something done right, you have to do it yourself. So combining that mantra of you have to do it yourself and it's never good enough is like a trap for an entrepreneur because it's hard to delegate things, right? It's hard to give something to somebody else. Sometimes it's not a trust issue necessarily, but you're just like, I can do this better, faster. And if I do it, then I can't critique it. But if somebody else does it, then I'm just going to get lost in the criticism of it. So you end up taking on a lot more tasks than you should. I remember we were assigned, you're bringing back a flood of memories from high school now, but I remember when I was assigned a task, we had partners in computer science. And so we had to program this little video game and, you kind of share the workload. But one day I just said, you know what, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to do it my way so I don't have to debug somebody else's code. I know it's going to work. And I did it. So we had like 2 weeks to do the task and I just did it in one day. And my partner is like, what the heck? I'm like, don't worry, I'll split the points with you. I don't really care about that. My brain just works that way. Maybe it may or may not be true that I could do it better, or I'll find a better way, or I'll look at things through that lens. But yeah, that's what's coming up for me. I think back to it's such a wonderful time in life, high school, right? My son's in high school right now, so I'm kind of reliving his high school experience, or reliving my high school experience through him in some ways.
So if we were to see you now, you're a senior in high school. There's Sachin walking down the hall in high school. What would we have seen?
Well, I weighed about 30 pounds less than I do now. So just for context, I'm 5'10", 170 pounds. And so I was still 5'10", but probably around 140 pounds. So much skinnier, less muscular, I would say. And I was pretty confident. I was, popular, social, good intellect, right? So good academically. I was athletic. So, good, at playing hockey and baseball. I was on the baseball team. And so I would say I had quite a bit of confidence and I was really good with my hands. So, very good at arts and, woodworking and shop and things like that. So yeah, that would be kind of in a nutshell myself. Very meticulous as well. So meticulous with my hair, with my beard, with my clothing. So you could just tell like this person is like, I could see myself now, takes care of themselves. Let's put it that way.
And it sounds like you were very well-rounded as well. I mean, not just totally into sports or totally not into sports and only into academics. You did a lot of everything.
Yeah, I would definitely say and I have to thank my parents because they exposed us and supported us in anything that we wanted to do. Sometimes to a fault. Like I remember crying going to piano classes because I didn't want to go, and partly because of the teacher. But now in hindsight, I wish I knew how to play the piano, right? Or maybe even the guitar. So we were exposed to music. We were exposed to religion and spirituality, and we were exposed to all kinds of different diets and sports and all kinds of things. So I was very grateful for the exposure I received. And we grew up in a very multicultural school, being in Markham, which is a suburb of Toronto. So we had a lot of exposure to different cultures and religions and people from all different parts of the world. So it was a very a mosaic of individuals from all over the place. So you kind of, looking back in hindsight, I had a lot of exposure to a lot of different types of people, walks of life, diets, athletics, music, everything. It was pretty amazing upbringing.
Okay, so done with high school, graduated, off to college. where did you go to college and what were you interested in? What would you major in? What was your path?
Yeah, so I went to McMaster University, which is in Hamilton, Ontario, and I studied kinesiology. So that's the physics and the study of human movement. My path.
Why kinesiology?
It's interesting you asked that because I was actually going to go into computer science because I loved being able to code and program and, debug and find better and faster ways. And that's the thing about coding is that you get rewarded for efficiency and you get rewarded immediately for doing things better, right? Because you can clock it. And so I originally was going to go into computer science because that's where I actually got the highest grades. And I love the logic, but then, I realized I'm like, man, I'm going to be sitting in front of a computer all day if I do this. And I love sports. I love interacting with people and, I love math and physics. So studying human movement, seemed to be, the right path for me. And now, ironically, I sit in front of a computer all day, coaching clients and writing articles and doing videos and stuff like that. But I try to do it outside, so at least I get as much sunlight as possible. But yeah, that was my original thought, was to go into computer science. And even in university, my highest grades were still in computer science because I did take some computer studies courses. So I like kinesiology. That led me into chiropractic. So I felt like kinesiology was a perfect stepping stone to chiropractic. And I think I may have mentioned this to you. I almost became a dentist because I was really good with tools and really good with my hands. But when I started getting dental catalogs, all I saw were people's mouths, right? And of course, now with the maturity I have, dental health is really what impacts global health, right? I didn't know that or think that at the time, but I realize that now and I actually work with a lot of dentists. But the catalogs were just looking into people's mouths. And so I'm like, I love working with tools. I love helping people and I love talking to people, and I won't be able to talk to them because I'll be working on their mouth. So a chiropractic then seemed to be the next obvious choice for me. Having that athletic background, the kinesiology background, the love of using my hands, right? And, there's an art and science to dentistry and to chiropractic as well. So that's one of the reasons that, kinesiology kind of created a path. It was kinesiology was great because we got a Bachelor of Kinesiology. Now it's a Bachelor of Science at that school, but you take all the same courses as a pre-med student would take. So you essentially get all the pre-qualifying courses, but you graduate with a kind of a specific designation as opposed to just a Bachelor of Science. And then you've got to take a master's or a postgraduate degree. So chiropractic ended up being, my choice. Very grateful for everything that I've learned. I think the greatest gift I've given to my family is studying chiropractic and adopting and applying the philosophies of chiropractic into my lifestyle, into my son's lifestyle and wife, and all my clients and patients that I work with. So yeah, that's what I studied in university, to answer your question.
So then off to chiropractic school, finished chiropractic school, into practice. What was your practice like? How did that take place? And are you still practicing chiropractic?
Yeah, great question. And now I'm thinking about my operating system because my whole journey as an associate was all about finding a better way to help people. So I graduated, and before I graduated, I studied something called active release technique, which is a soft tissue modality that helps people release fascia, release tight muscles, ligaments, tendons. And so you end up working a lot with very athletic people because people who have these type of injuries usually are from repetitive strain. So they're either doing the same thing over and over again, and athletes do the same thing kind of over and over again, right? But working with active release clients, I ended up getting an externship in my 10th semester. So if you finish all your credits in school early enough, where you see all your clients and patients and get all the patient visits, then you can do an externship. And so one of my professors, Dr. Dale Buckberger, he was the chiropractor shoulder expert for the Toronto Blue Jays at the time. So he was one of our professors, and I asked him, hey, do you know anyone in Ohio that I could shadow, because my parents had moved to Ohio at that time. And he said, here's Sophie Brodeur is her name. And so I went to work for her or did an externship, and then she hired me right out of school. So I moved to Cincinnati from upstate New York Chiropractic College, and started working right away with her. And, we were doing a ton of soft tissue. That's what her practice was known for. And I got really good at that. But a couple of years in, my hands started hurting, because when you're working on a football player's glutes, right? Like, that's a big chunk of muscle. right? You're working on their hamstrings, working on their plantar fascia. Like you're just, your thumbs are destroyed at the end of the day. And I remember my mom said something to me, and she said, she saw me massaging my hands at the end of the day. And she's like, you got to figure out how to work with your head, not your hands. And that really stuck with me. And 2 years into practice, I was featured on the news because my boss, Sophie at the time, she froze on live television at a previous interview that she did. And so she has a lot of anxiety around being in front of a camera. So she's like, Patel, you do the interview, because we were getting such great results. And one of our clients worked for the news. And she said, hey, we'd love to feature you on Channel 9 News. And so Sophie passed the opportunity on to me. Here I am 2 years out of school and on the news in a good way. So I still remember they recorded in August and they ran during the sweeps in November. And when they ran the piece, the phone kept ringing. I remember it was 5:00. I was ready to leave. It was like 5:20 at the time when they played it, and the phone just kept ringing and ringing and ringing. So the staff and all of us stayed to answer the phone calls and schedule all these appointments. And we had all these people scheduled after watching a story about tennis elbow. We helped a lady named Connie get her tennis elbow resolved. She had surgery, she had PT, nothing helped, and we were able to help her. So that's what they ran the story on. And we had about 80 people call the office, and only one of them had elbow pain. The other people came in walkers, came in wheelchairs, were assisted by family members, and just, at probably their wits' end, but certainly at the end of their rope in terms of what they were dealing with their health. Excuse me. So they were at the end of the rope in terms of dealing with their health. And so they're coming in with fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, like debilitating stuff, not sports injuries, not, traditional chiropractic type stuff, myofascial or soft tissue injuries. They're coming in with, what are now more, I would consider more chronic dysfunctional, diseases, but nobody was helping them. So they just, for whatever reason, saw a glimmer of hope that I could help them. Turns out I couldn't, but that really gutted me. And I'm like, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a way to help these people. And around that time, serendipitously, I started receiving emails about functional medicine, and particularly case studies that a doctor was sharing of people that he was helping resolve very similar challenges to these cases that I had to now turn down and not even know where to refer them to. So I'm like, wait a minute, he's a chiropractor. I wonder if I could do that. And so that's what introduced me to functional medicine. And when you go through the training, you become a patient yourself. So I started realizing I had health challenges that I didn't know were actual health challenges. I had just normalized them. So my health radically improved as a result of giving up gluten and giving up, certain processed meats. I'm a vegetarian. So at the time, you're trying to get as much protein as you can. So you're doing like soy dogs and all this crap that you couldn't pay me to eat now. I'm drinking all kinds of shakes and stuff like that. So I realized that my gut was completely a mess and I had normalized it. And by filling out this questionnaire and becoming my own patient and / doctor, I realized, oh my God, like this is not good. So I fixed it, and that really drove my passion for functional medicine. And what I realized is there's a form that you give a functional medicine client. Is called we call it now a root cause assessment is what we call it. And I started giving that to my chiropractic patients, and just to see, right? They're coming in and we just have them fill out a front and back form, just circle where it hurts basically and what type of pain it is. And that's like our intake form. But this was like a 321 question intake form. And you just circle the symptom if you have it or not. So it doesn't take more than 15 minutes to fill out. But I would just give it to them at the end of the appointment. I said, just bring this back with you next time. And then they'd come back and all their forms would be like 3s and 2s and 3s and 2s. And they would have all these issues with their digestion, with their liver, with their gallbladder, with their adrenals, with their blood sugar dysregulation, with their hormonal imbalances. And I'm like, oh my God, here they are raving about my services. That's why they keep coming back, but never telling me about all these other things that they have going on. And if somebody was helping them with it, they wouldn't have it going on. So they still have it going on, and they're never going to experience what life has to offer with these symptoms. And so I was feeling so much better, and I just wanted everyone else around me to feel so much better. So by introducing this form into the practice, it really opened up the conversation for us to have about these issues. And then I started, assisting them and helping them. But my boss didn't like it because the conversations were getting longer, right? And she had never thought that, oh my God, if we start working with elite athletes, which we were already working with, and introducing nutrition and functional medicine and going all the way down to their mitochondria and looking at their biochemistry more closely, like we could be a champion level clinic. but she just didn't get it. So I ended up leaving that practice and then working for somebody else. And they allowed me to do the functional medicine and chiropractic in combination. And they had 30 clinics. I had the top 2 clinics. I was running 2 of their clinics, and I had the top 2 clinics that in terms of revenue in their business. And then eventually they stopped paying me. They couldn't afford to pay me because I broke the contract in the sense that they never thought I would hit the numbers that I hit. So they wrote the contract in such a way, and I broke all the goals, and I think it caused their system to crash. You know what I mean? So then they couldn't afford to pay me anymore, and so I ended up starting my own business, which was like the best thing that ever happened to me.
And what year was that?
2011. In fact, we just celebrated our 14th anniversary this week.
Wow. And your practice is where?
Anywhere I am. So it's all virtual. So we do everything virtually. So I think your audience will appreciate this. Like, I'm now looking back, connecting all the dots at the better way. So when I left that company, when they stopped paying me, they owed me about $60,000. And I had to decide if I was going to walk away from it or if I was going to fight it. And my buddy was a lawyer, and he's like, dude, you got to fight this. You have a case. Like, it's all documented. And I'm like, I told him, I said, Jason, I can either spend a year trying to chase this money down and they file bankruptcy and I never see a penny of it, or I could focus all my attention and energy on being a better version of who I am right now, which I know I'm a rock solid clinician. I know that I get results for people. I know, I didn't stumble to the top of this business and build the top 2 clinics without knowing what I was doing. But I wanted to find a better way to practice. And so I shopped around and I looked for clinic spaces and things like that. And I'm like, man, I got to sign a 5-year lease or a 10-year lease. And I have to, pay for any renovations and things like that. And then I got to decorate the office. I'm like, man, there has to be a better way. And there was. So my secretary, her mom at the time, she said, Dr. Patel, you got to come see this office space. And it was literally right across the street from where this other office was. And it was basically what we would now consider like a smart office or a WeWork type of office. So I'm like, oh my God, it's $1,000. I have somebody that answers the phone for everybody in that location. And so I don't have to hire somebody to sit there full time waiting for a phone call to take place. And I had a 300 square foot office, all the furniture, everything was included, the internet. They had a big teaching kitchen that I could, host seminars in. They had a beautiful conference room with 100-inch TV. I'd never seen a TV that big, or maybe 120 inches. It used to be BASF that owned that office space, and they moved out. So it was like, very, very specced out office space. And I ran my practice out of there. There's $1,000 a month.
Wow.
And created a new kind of model for functional medicine practitioners, because it's mainly a consultative practice, which means that I'm not working on the things that I need to poke at and touch. I'm working on the biochemistry. And for that, I need labs, or I need, all I need is a good history. And that's going to tell me a lot. So we didn't need to have a fancy office space. And then I realized that the person answering the phone calls was answering the phone for everybody. We had our own dedicated phone number, obviously, and she would answer Living Proof Institute. But I'm like, if people start asking her questions, she's not going to know how to answer them. So then I had to become really good at pre-educating people. And so that turned me into a content creating machine. And so then I became probably one of the first people to start scheduling patients online so that they don't have to call the office, because I don't know what she's going to say. And I don't want to ruin that initial experience that people have. So I'm going to figure out a way so that people don't have to call the office. They can just schedule online, and they already have the information they need because they're pre-educated, persuaded, pre-motivated and predetermined to do what we're going to take them through. So that became a very powerful way to practice for me, because essentially one client and you're profitable. You could set your own hours. Like, I don't have to be there all the time versus a retail location. I'd have to have somebody there all the time for office hours, right? If there's walk-in traffic and stuff like that. And we got amazing results. I mean, most importantly, at the end of the day, we got amazing results. And I had virtually no stress of running the office. So it allowed me to do the best work possible. And then I moved back to Toronto and I repeated that process. I found a smart office and repeated that process. And then my colleagues were like, dude, what are you doing? Like, how are you doing this? How do you have 2 offices, 2 locations? Like, how does this work? And they wanted to learn more. So then I started coaching practitioners on how to set up their own micro practices. And then in 2020, when COVID happened, we were like one of the first people to pivot and go fully virtual. So that's why, all that to say that, if I go back and connect the dots, I've always been looking for a better way to practice. And I found, there's the best way for me to practice is to be able to practice from anywhere in the world. And so that's the way we've designed our practice. So I could be upstairs on my back balcony, or I could be downstairs in my office, or I could be at the gym and working, or I could be in Arizona doing work and helping people. I could be on my phone. So we help people practice from their pocket. So we teach our clinicians how to run their entire practice from their phone.
Oh my gosh. You're way ahead of your time, right? As you were developing all of that. People weren't doing it back then. And now you've created a whole new niche, right? A whole new way to do things.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's just refining, and now licensing. That's what we do now.
Lower overhead, higher satisfaction for everybody, ability to not be stuck in an office, which is one of the biggest challenges, like as a dentist. That was one of the things that zapped my energy after a while was, I had to be in that space all the time. Now you could be in Europe, you could be anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. It started by my mom saying, you got to learn how to work with your head, not your hands.
Yeah. So a typical functional medicine practice or chiropractic practice has what as its overhead percentage versus what you're doing?
Oh, man. I mean, my overhead per month is really just my software.
Yeah.
Which is, my EHR is like, it's like, we have a team, so it's like $200 a month, and which is like nothing. And then my CRM, which is the other piece of software, is like a couple $100 a month. So like sub $1,000. So if I have staff to pay and things like that, but if I were to just go totally lean and just have a solo practice, which you can do, maybe you need an EA or something, the fixed cost is like very, very low.
Yeah. Well, like for example, in a typical dental practice, the overhead would be between say 50 to 80, which can be a very, very big number every month.
Yeah.
Whereas what you're doing is, under a couple $1,000 and you're set, totally different animal. The pressure's totally different, right? Now you're free to focus on the patient versus focus on the overhead.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the things that I'm very proud of, Gary, is that we've been able to provide exceptional value for a very affordable and accessible price. Like when people see what they get, like our flagship program is $5,000, and everyone tells me I need to charge more, but I don't have to charge more because it's not necessary, right? And of course I could, and I understand that, but with that, people get a DNA test, they get a leaky gut test, they get to get tested against 176 different foods if they should be eating them or not. They get a one-on-one dedicated coach that holds them accountable every day for 12 weeks. They get group coaching. They get a beautiful kit. They get an Aura ring. Like they get a ton of stuff. I don't want here to pitch the program, but they get so much value. And there's people that charge more than us that don't even do any of those things. Right. And that's not, a slide against anyone else, but all that to say that we've been able to keep our care very affordable and very accessible because we're able to keep our overhead very low. And I personally live a very simple life. I mean, I like nice things, but I live a very simple life myself. So, we can make what we do accessible to anyone. I mean, people, I've found this term and I don't know who said it, but, it's no matter what you charge, there'll be people that can't afford it and complain about it. Even if you charge $50, you could go find people to complain about that, and you could charge any amount and there'll be people that are willing to pay it. Right. So
yeah, let's talk about that for a minute. And I don't mind you telling everybody what it is that you're doing. Who's like your ideal client? Who is it that seeks you out and is looking for you? And then what do you do with them to help them get healthy, and how do you define health?
Yeah, great question. And this is very relevant because it boils down to the better way. So a few years ago, when I left my chiropractic office, the associate that was replacing me handed me a CD. And he's like, "Hey, I heard you're into nutrition. I think you'll like this CD." And it was a gentleman named James Chestnut. And I still have that CD to this day in my car. Okay. And I listen to it today. Those two CDs changed my life, because what they help me understand is how amazing our bodies are and that we have it completely backwards in our healthcare system. We have a system that's set up that basically teaches you how to be healthy only after you get sick, and only after you get sick enough based on an invented criteria, right? There's people that have completely normal lab work that feel terrible, and there's people that feel terrible that have completely normal, lab work. So or there's people that feel nothing and they have terrible lab work. So there isn't always a correlation there, is what I was trying to say. And their solution to the current problem that we have with healthcare isn't waiting until somebody gets sick and then teaching them how to get healthy, even if that happens through a functional medicine practitioner, right? Like, I don't want my son to be my patient ever. Like, even if I do the most natural intervention, I never want him to need my services. What would be amazing and what would be the greatest gift that I could give him is to teach him how to take care of himself. And so our philosophy is that the doctor of the future is the patient, because more doctors, more nurses, more drugs, more supplements, more labs, more this, more that isn't the answer, right? It's not worked. And if anything, we just see it falling off of a cliff. And to me, the only answer is, and the world I want to live in is one where people, at least parents, know how to take care of their children from the very beginning to the best of their capacity and ability, and that child knows how to take care of themselves and understands how blessed they are to have this beautiful body, which is constantly replacing itself, right? 90% of our cells will replace themselves in the next 6 months. So 90% of you is brand new every 6 months. Which begs the question, why do people stay sick, right? If I gave somebody a new car, does that make them a better driver?
No,
right? So giving somebody new cells every day, right? Your gut lining replaces itself every 3 days, your liver every 6 months, right? So giving people new organs, regenerating them through stem cells and, cell division and all these things is a wonderful gift. But if we don't change the environment, or we don't change the inputs, then the cell's not going to function properly, right? So if I drive my car over potholes, whether it's new or old, I'm going to destroy it. And if I put the wrong fuel in it, I'm going to destroy it. And if I don't follow the rules of the road, I'm going to destroy it. And if I don't know what all the buttons and symbols mean, then I'm never going to use all the features. So we kind of go through life never having learned how to drive, never learning what the buttons are in our body to push. And so what I help people do is I help them understand what those are and how they can be their own best doctor and tap into, this constant process of regenerating ourselves and start sending their cells the right message. And what's cool about that, Gary, what happens is your body doesn't resist. It insists, right? It's actually been wanting you to do all these things. It's been wanting you to watch the sunrise. It's been wanting you to watch the sunset. It's been wanting you to connect with nature. It's been wanting you to slow down your breath. It's been wanting you to chew your food. It's been wanting you to love on others and have physical connection with other people. And it's been wanting you to have community, right? It's actually been insisting these things all along. And so it doesn't resist when you do these things. So being healthy ends up feeling like rolling a boulder down a hill. And so it happens very rapidly. But when we start living a life that violates the laws of biology and the laws of nature, right, then it feels like rolling a boulder up a hill. And then we prop ourselves up with supplements and drugs and labs and, all these little hacks and all these, gimmicks, right? All because nobody's taught us what we actually need to be doing. So this is why we can guarantee results for our patients. Like, I think we're the only clinic that gives a money back guarantee that we will produce results for you. And we track the results. We give our clients an Aura ring. So we have all the evidence from thousands of clients that we work with that our process works. And we have certainty because I understand what the rules are, what the non-negotiables are when it comes to health. Most people don't realize this, but imagine trying to negotiate with a plant, right? How ridiculous would that be? And that's what most people are trying to do with their bodies. They're trying to negotiate with it and doing things like, well, I'll eat this excess garbage and inflammatory foods, but I'll go work out, thinking that that's, a trade-off. It's like putting a plant in a dark closet and negotiating with it that you're going to give it more water. It's still going to die, right? So when you just look at things a little bit differently, it's just common sense, right? And what I tell people is, listen, I'm not going to teach you anything new. I'm going to help you remember who you are. You already know what to do. I just need to, remove all the junk files that you've downloaded over the years and all the stories that you're holding on to and all the stuff you saw on the TV and all the stuff that big pharma, impregnated you with, all these ideas that don't serve you. I need you to just pull all that stuff out so you can remember who you are and remember that you were built in the image of perfection and that we have this perfect world that we live in, as close as it gets. It's the only one we know of, right? Only planet that we know of so far. But we live on this amazing planet, and it's mind-boggling to me that nobody's taught us how to live. So we don't focus on prevention. So somebody might say, "Oh, well, you focus on prevention." No, I don't. I focus on health creation. And that's what's different about what we do, because prevention is kind of like, imagine you wanted to go to a nice restaurant today. Prevention is the equivalent of putting all the addresses in your GPS that you don't want to go to, hoping you get to the restaurant. Health creation is putting in where you want to go and you get there, right? Without uncertainty, with absolute certainty, you're going to get there. So prevention is so confusing because, like, how many different diseases are you going to try to prevent? Right? One day you're eating a cancer prevention diet, the next day heart disease prevention diet, the next day diabetes prevention diet. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous, right? So if we want people to actually get healthy, we got to remove all the confusion and go down to simplicity, right? And that's my how in the WHY.os is how, right? Is simple, I'm sorry. So making health embarrassingly simple has become my mission. And I tell my clients, listen, Da Vinci said that the greatest sign, the ultimate sophistication is simplicity. So if we just reverse engineer that and say, well, what's the most sophisticated thing that we know of? It's not my computer. It's not my car, right? It's not my TV. It's me, which means that I should be simple to take care of, right? If I was clunky and I have to oh my God, I had to do all this research to understand how to take care of myself, then that would not be sophisticated, right? That would be the exact opposite of sophisticated. So our computer is sophisticated because it's easy to use, right? If I had to understand how it works to use it, I would be like, this is a piece of garbage. So we're convinced to think that our body is complicated. So we think of it as being broken, and we can easily be convinced that. And then we look for all the answers in the wrong places. So the best place to hide the answers is inside you. So that's where health is hidden from us. And so if we can teach people what are those magic buttons that they need to push every day, and I actually shared most of them with you already, and they do them consistently, and they have a short feedback loop like their Aura Ring to tell them, hey, you're moving in the right direction. Here's the data. You can see it within days that their heart rate goes down, HRV goes up, deep sleep improves. Now we have a way to demonstrate to them that this is working. So there's way more buy-in. And they don't have to wait until 6 months when they go see their doctor and they get their blood work and it's better or worse or the same, and they don't know what affected it because there was a million things that happened between now and 6 months ago. But if you give people a short feedback loop, then they can know, I had a late meal, okay, my sleep was off, or I drank a beer last night, my sleep is off, or hey, I had an early dinner and my deep sleep improved. So now we allow people to bring experimentation into the equation. And with that short feedback loop, we collect data. So we actually collect more data than they would get at any medical doctor's office. And we have better client compliance. And because I can know what time you went to bed, what time you woke up, right? I can see all your scores. It pulls into our database every single day. I can check in on you. So if I see your heart rate is, HRV is going down steadily, or your sleep quality is going down, our system will flag it. And so we know to reach out to you and say, hey, like, what's going on here? Let's evaluate this and course correct if we need to. So we've really created a system that is designed around self-empowering people. And so to answer your question, like, who's my best client? Anyone whose brain isn't smooth. So if you value your health, there is no other way there's no system out there that will teach you the things I will teach you. And there's no other system out there that will liberate you from the endless, supplements and drugs and testing and all of those things. I mean, not to say that those things can't be valuable or aren't important, right? But when you do what is right, it's a whole different feeling. You have certainty and confidence. And even if something happens, you're set up for success to get through it, right? You're in a much better position. I tell my clients, listen, drugs work better in healthy people.
Yeah. It just makes so much sense what you're saying. It really does. Figure out what you want and go get that versus try to avoid everything you don't want. So, if you could give people one thing that you've seen that makes the biggest difference on this health journey of deciding what you want, and maybe that is the answer, but what would that one thing be? Because Sounds like a whole lot, but if you can narrow it down to, okay, this would be the first thing that would make the biggest difference for you, what would that be?
Yeah. So there's three. So I know you're asking for one. So I'll start with the first one. The first one is it's probably nervous system regulation through the breath. So your breath is the steering wheel of your nervous system. And it's interesting. And I do like medical keynotes on this, so I'll keep it brief, but the state of your nervous system determines the state of cellular function. So if your body's in fight or flight, which the majority of people are in a perpetual state of fight or flight, then your cells and your tissues and your organs are in a fight or flight state. And what that means for different organs is different. So when we are in fight or flight, our visceral organs go into a suspended state of animation, which means they get enough blood flow so they don't go necrotic, but not enough blood flow for them to function properly. So for example, in fight or flight, if a lion was chasing you, 80 to 90% of your kidney function, liver function, and digestive function shuts off. And that makes sense because if I'm in fight or flight, I want to send blood to my arms and legs. If where we send flow is where we send function. So I don't want to send function to my gut because digesting my burrito from lunch is not going to save me from the lion. And it's not going to give me energy because the energy I need is from adrenaline and sugar, right? Glucose, right? It's not from digesting my complex meal that I had. So our body shuts all of those functions down for survival. And so the master switch that controls that, we can consciously control the state of our nervous system through our breath. It's like the steering wheel of our nervous system. So that's where I encourage people to start because they could do that right now.
Yeah.
You could close your mouth, breathe through your nose, put your tongue at the roof of the mouth, count for 4 to 6 seconds in, 4 to 6 seconds out. Most people overbreathe. And so when we overbreathe, we become, again, sympathetic dominant. And what that actually does is it shuts off all the mechanisms of healing. So if I were to sit here and, I'll exaggerate, but breathe like that, right? And of course, I'm exaggerating for effect. All my healing processes would shut down because my body would assume I'm in fight or flight. My heart rate would increase, my blood pressure would increase, just physically, right? My lungs are pumping in and out, expanding, contracting, my diaphragm's moving up and down, right? So my heart's going to get excited, blood pressure is going to go up because I'm going to get blood to my arms and legs now. All of my visceral organ function shuts down. And so when we can teach people how to breathe correctly, see, breath is a two-way street. So the window into the nervous system is the breath. So if you're sitting here and the way you breathe changes, right, I can tell that the state of your nervous system has changed. And so let me give you a few examples. If I say something funny, you're going to laugh. Laughing is breath work. If I say something that makes you upset, you're going to cry. Crying is breath work. If I say something that shocks you, you're going to gasp, right? Gasping is breath work. So when our nervous system, even the hum that you just did, right, you initiated that through your breath without even realizing you were doing that. So when we lengthen our exhale, it activates our parasympathetic nervous system. So humming or even sighing, for example, is a great way to reset our nervous system. So we teach people these nuances. And once you learn them, you're already breathing. You already take 23,000 breaths a day. You consume 30 pounds of air every day, which is orders of magnitude more than you eat a day. So you consume more air than anything else in a day, right? So we should be paying attention to that, right? The 23,000 breaths that we take, assists our heart in pumping blood, but the biggest lymph nodes are underneath our diaphragm. So it also pumps our lymphatic system. And the diaphragm acts as a piston to pump the lymph from all of our trunk organs. So when people don't have good lymphatic drainage or flow, and their breathing is short and shallow, they don't assist their heart in pumping blood. Now they're going to have heart issues, cancer, right? Most cancer starts in the lymph node when organs can't detox properly. And they're also going to have other challenges that come up with that because they're going to be slightly shifted into a sympathetic dominant state. So breath is probably the first domino. It's the simplest, easiest, freest thing that you can do. You just have to know how. And once you know how, then guess what? Every day, 23,000 times, you're benefiting from that knowledge.
That's awesome. Last question for you, Sachin. I know we're kind of running out of time. You and I could probably talk for a couple of hours.
We can.
Which we have kind of already, but what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given or the best piece of advice you've ever given?
Great question. I would say the advice that my mom gave me was really valuable to me. And then the other advice I would say that I really anchor myself to is that making money shouldn't cost you the things that money can't buy.
Who told you that one?
I don't know. I get these downloads and then I get the download and I'm like, that's some good shit, And I let it sink in, and then I go to try to find online if somebody else said that. And I think it was me that said that. Maybe there's other versions of it. And I know that there's some universal truths and principles that other people download. So I don't want to take all the credit for it, but that was a download that I received. And it's just stuck with me ever since.
That's awesome. Well, Sachin, if there are people that are listening, and I know there are, that want to follow you, learn from you, hire you, work with you, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
I read every single email. So I'll give everyone my email address. It's Sachin@becomeproof, SACHIN @becomeproof.com. The website's also becomeproof.com. You can learn more there. And you can also follow me on Facebook. That's a good place to get the raw version of me expressing my truth.
I love it. Sachin, thank you so much for being here today and sharing your knowledge and expertise with our audience. I really appreciate your time.
Gary, this has actually been very helpful for me to look back in my life and connect these dots and really understand myself better. So I want to thank you as well for the opportunity to really reflect on my life and unpack some of this stuff.
Well, I know we're going to be in touch over the years. So again, thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
I really hope you enjoyed today's episode and that through today's guest, you heard how important it is to know your why and how impactful it can be in your life and the lives of those around you. Be sure to head over to WHY.institute.com and discover your why today. Remember, the more you know about yourself, the more you'll know about others. I'm Dr. Gary Sanchez, and I'll see you on the next episode.